What's up everybody, I'm Gio and welcome back to Carvalho Creations, where I show you how to make awesome props and projects of your own. I'm super excited about today's video because we're going to be revisiting one of my favorite props of all time, our Monster Mud Witch. Now in my original Monster Mud Witch video, I primarily covered how to create monster mud. So I talked about the ratios, how I mix everything up, and of course how I apply it to my armature. But I left out key features like the sculpture of the hands and face of that character and also the armature build itself. And a lot of you guys wanted to see how I did that. So in today's video, I'm going to take you through the entire process from the armature build, the monster mud application, the sculpting of the hands and face, and of course our detailed paint. We got so much to cover in this video, so why don't we get in that spooky spirit? Because we're about to go wild. All right, what's up everybody? So in today's video, I'm going to be revisiting one of my most popular videos, and that was my Monster Mud Witch video I did a few years ago. And so many of you guys loved it so much, I thought I would redo another one with a completely different style. So in today's video, our witch is going to be more of a gypsy kind of woodland witch character. So this is going to be a really cool build. So now let's get into the material list so you know what you're going to need to get this character going. So to start off with our armature, we're definitely going to be needing a plywood base. Now I'm going to cut mine to about 16 inches deep by about 20 inches wide or so. I think that should be plenty for a little structural support. We're going to be needing two 8-foot pieces of 2x4, and that's going to be for the overall structure for the support of the actual body. Now I'm opting to use 2x4 instead of PVC pipe because I need this structure to be super strong, so when I put my monster mud on the top of it, it hardens properly and it stays in the position and the pose that I want. We're also going to be needing some 1/2-inch PVC pipe just to create the bone structure for the arms and for the neck. And we're going to be needing a heat gun just to bend everything in place. We're also going to be using some chicken wire just to create the form of the character, and then to create a little bit more meat under the monster mud, just so you can't see the grating from the chicken wire underneath. I'm going to use a little bit of upholstery foam to kind of cushion that so it looks more like actual flesh as opposed to the chicken wire grating underneath. We're also going to be needing fabric with our monster mud, and that's how we're going to get our look for our material, our clothes, the cloak she's going to be wearing, some of the accessories and things like that, so it looks really nice and put together. We're going to be needing some spray foam. Definitely going to be needing a foam head today, and I'm going to repurpose my Exorcist Illusion costume head. It's been sitting here for a while, and it's time that she gets another facelift. And to do our sculpt today, we're going to be using some cement clay. Now again, you guys don't have to use cement clay on your props. This is just something that I like to do, so I'm going to sculpt my face out today. It's going to be really awesome. I want to make it a wicked, creepy looking old witch. Now, aside from all those things, I'm probably going to use a little bit of PVC pipe and a foam head to create a staff that she's going to be carrying so she can be a little hunched over, look a little more decrepit. And then also, too, I'm going to be using some old prop hands that I've made. Now, if you guys want to make your own prop hands at all for yourself, I'll leave a link down in the description for 2 different videos in which I make 2 separate types of prop hands. One in our pinhead video and one in our easy prop hands video. So I'll leave a link in the description down below for both of those so you can check them out yourself. But today's video is going to be really cool. I'm going to show you everything from the ground up, the armature, the sculpture, the monster mud process, and of course our detailed paint. So I hope you guys are excited about this one. It's going to be an epic video, but why don't we go ahead and go wild.
All right, to start off our build today, like I said, I'm going to cut my plywood piece at about 20 inches in width, and I'm going to be using a very special tool to get this done, my Atlantean sword. Now, if you guys don't have an Atlantean sword, you can definitely use something cheap like a circular saw, and I'm going to be cutting my 2 pieces of 2x4 here at 55 inches in length, and that's a perfect height for the shoulders I wanted for her, because I want that frame to be about that tall up to her shoulders. And then I'll add the small piece of 1/2-inch PVC pipe for the neck so I can place my styrofoam head on top of. And now I'm just going ahead and pre-drilling my holes before I screw everything together. Also too, I want to mention, I measured up 33 inches from the base of those 2x4 on either side where I'm going to put my bracer, and this bracer here is 8 inches in length. And the reason I'm doing that is because when I go to apply my monster mud, I need something to staple that skirt to. If you don't do that, it's going to be too heavy. It's going to hang and fall all over the place, and I'm telling you, it's going to cause you a lot of issues. So I always try to put a bracer at about the waist height for my character, so I can staple my monster mud to it and allow it to dry properly. Now this is a very basic frame. This is for your typical standing character. There's no bend in the wood. It's just straight from the floor to the actual shoulders of the character. But for this character, it's gonna be perfect. She's gonna be standing up straight, but it makes for a really strong structural support. And then for the top piece here, I cut this at 11 inches. I didn't want her shoulders to be any broader than that. Again, she's an old woman, so I want it to be kind of thin, real narrow pulled in. So 11 inches for this top bracer as well, and then I just put one screw on either side to hold everything together. Now for the base, I'm going to go ahead and sandwich 2 scrap pieces of 2x4 in between our structure here, so that way you have more surface area to screw your base down to. I completely recommend, I've done this so many times, do not just screw your 2 pieces of 2x4 directly into the plywood base. Brace them like this with 2 scrap pieces so you have so much more surface area. It makes for a much stronger bond, because the last thing you want is to do all this work and then the wind or something knock it over and it just destroys your base. Now here I'm going to be attaching my base just with a brad nailer. You don't need a brad nailer. If you got someone else to hold the piece for you, that's perfect, but I'm working by myself here. So this is just a placeholder. And then I go back in with 1 5/8 screws to go ahead and screw this down so it's really strong. And I do at least 4 screws in the base here just to make sure that this thing doesn't come out for years. Right now I'm going to cut down my PVC pipe, and I'm cutting them down at about 24 inches in length for the arms. That way I have a little extra to screw to the actual wood base, and then I can manipulate the arms in the positions I need. Now with this step, I recommend putting 1 screw in at a time. That way you can kind of adjust the angle of your arms you want. And then once you have that angle set, put a secondary screw so that thing doesn't move, because you're going to need 2 screws here in order to take the weight of the monster mud at the end. And here again, I'm just using my heat gun, spritzing it with water once I got the angle right. And get yourself some reference pictures, or even pose in the mirror to make sure you got your proportions right, you got the pose right, and you're bending it at the right areas. And you want to use your PVC pipe and heat gun in a well-ventilated area. I have my garage door open here, so I have plenty of air, because the fumes from that are pretty bad. And then here I'm just drilling in with my Forstner bit a nice hole for my PVC to sit into. And I do this quite often. I'll go ahead and drill that hole in there, and then I'll put a pilot hole in the side, as you see me doing here, and then I just screw my PVC pipe directly to that, so I can adjust the height of the head depending on how tall or short I need it to be. And again, we're just taking our heat gun here and bending the PVC pipe in the neck. I wanted her head to be tilted slightly forward. And then when I did that, she was looking down a little bit too much. So I went ahead and walked around the back of the armature here and then rebent it up a little bit. So she's still kind of hunched over and has that more natural head tilt. But then her eyes are looking toward everyone else, the audience. And it just makes it more aesthetically appealing. And then for my hands here, like I said, I'm using my old foam hands, and what I'm doing is just duct taping them into place. And it's just a placeholder for now. Obviously, this is not going to be able to support any weight, but once I get the monster mud wrapped around there, it's going to be plenty strong to hold anything I need to. And for the arms here, to meet them out, instead of using upholstery foam around the arms, I'm just using pool noodle. I use this a lot in a ton of my other props as well. It's just easier. It really does flesh out the character, and it's super cost effective. Now to get to my sculpt here, I'm using my cement clay, and I mixed up 2 batches. So I'm going to leave it a link down in the description below of my cement clay recipe video so you guys can create this yourself. I've been using this religiously now. I love this type of clay. The only downside to it though is it does dry out relatively quick. So you got to work pretty quick on the sculpture here. Now this sculpture took me, I would say, an hour. And I'm indoor, I closed all the doors because I'm in the desert, it's super hot and dry, and that's almost a worst case scenario to work with this, just because it starts to create a skin over your cement clay. So you can always opt to use the foam clay, like I've shown in a lot of my other videos. The only issue I have with the foam clay is, like I said, it kind of swells up on itself, so you lose quite a bit of detail. Now you can go back in and sand that down to regain some of that detail, but it's an extra step. And for me, the cement clay is just where it's at. You can get a ton of detail out of this stuff. It's super durable once it dries, and you can retain so much look from it. So I definitely recommend doing this. So I'll leave a link down in the description for that video so you guys can check out your own cement clay and make this stuff yourself. It's super cost effective as well. Now here, because of the dry and hot temperatures, as I'm putting down the form here, once I have the form for the certain area of the face I'm going for, then I start to carve in some of that detail with my tools here, and I'm always dipping my fingers in that water and kind of rehydrating that clay a little bit, so it gives me a little bit more working time. Now you don't want to overdo this process because it does tend to get a little rubbery after a while, but just to get that surface nice and wet so you can start to carve in that detail, it's perfect. And you can see how I did add the eyes, and these are doll eyes too. What I'll go ahead and do is leave a link down in the description for the eyes I'm using. They're just doll eyes I found on Amazon. They're super cheap. They're like, I don't know, 15 bucks, and you get like, you know, 20 pairs or something like that. But they're really cool. Now these are a little smaller than a human eye, so the size ratio may be a little bit off. I kind of disguise that in my sculpture. And they're kind of reset in the head a little bit, but you still see them, and because they're so vibrant and nice, it really adds so much character to our witch here. Now the tools I'm using, again, these are from Amazon. They cost about 12 bucks for a set of, I don't know, like 20 different tools, but they're so versatile. I love them. I typically only use, though, maybe 1 or 2 different tools, not too many on most of my sculpts. So 80% of the sculpt, I would say, was just with this one tool I'm using here. And then I do some details for the nose and then also for the teeth and things like that with 2 other tools. But here I'm just building up that lip a little bit, making it look more of a grimace as opposed to a smile. And then adding more wrinkles, more character. I just want her to feel really grungy and dark and evil looking. Now for the hands, I wanted the fingers to be longer. This is from one of my puppet videos I did, and those were stubby little short fingers. And for the witch, I always wanted to have really long, gnarled fingers. So I'm just adding more material to the ends of my fingertips here. I did add a little bit of 16 gauge wire with some hot glue just to create a little more length so my cement clay has something to grip to. But it worked out perfectly. I love this technique. You can definitely use this. It's super simple to do, and this cement clay works beautifully. It bonds so well to that foam there, and it doesn't take but maybe 20 minutes to get all the fingers done. Because I wasn't doing a full hand, it was just the fingers. It was a breeze. Now I'm going to get to my chicken wire, and I'm using some tin snips here. And when you guys are working with this, if you haven't worked with chicken wire before, it's super sharp. Use some gloves, some safety equipment. My hands are super calloused at this point because I've been doing it for so long, so I don't typically, but I still get cuts and scrapes every once in a while, so use some gloves for sure. And then to attach this to our armature here, I just put some screws in various places around my armature, wherever I needed to hook that chicken wire to. When you're cutting your wire, make sure you're cutting more than what you actually need, because you can easily cut it too short and then you don't have enough and you're wasting a lot of material. So I cut an oversized piece, and then I'm just wrapping around those screws and then using a little bit of this scrap 16 gauge wire to screw it onto itself, to wrap it on itself, so I can create that form of the hood and also that little bit of a hunchback there, as you see. And I love chicken wire because you can just mold it and manipulate it to get the shapes you want as well. And this stuff is plenty strong to hold your monster mud also, so you don't have to worry about it sagging or bending. If you're trying to do like a faceless character, you can always put like a styrofoam head just as a placeholder, and then once everything dries, you can remove the head and it really will hold its shape well and for years to come as well. Now to add my upholstery foam, I'm using some of this tacky spray here. This is just a spray adhesive. And then I'm going to go ahead and wrap the hips, because the hips are too narrow, and I've done plenty of these characters where they seem too thin in the legs. So it's always good to like bulk them up a little bit, give them a little bit of form and meat using this upholstery foam. And this is just from old couch cushions. So this is where I typically get it from. If you guys want to buy it in the store, you typically can, but it's a lot more expensive.
All right, everyone, we just finished our armature stage. And before I jump into the monster mud, because we're about ready for that, I want to just give you a little detailed look at the witch so far and what we've done to prep her for our monster mud, so that monster mud comes out great. So I did add a staff here to the witch, and I did put a little bend in it just to give it more of a whimsical look. And I just used my heat gun for that and a little bit of water to freeze it in place. And then also I used the same clay because I made 2 batches for this sculpture, the hands, and I had a little bit left over, so I created a little head to sit on top of her staff just to give a little more character to this witch here. And then as far as the hood, the chicken wire, I wanted to create a hood as opposed to a hat this time. Like I said, I wanted more of like a gypsy woodland witch. So the style is going to be kind of hooded, old material, old clothes. And I did cut a bunch of different types of material as well. We have burlap, we have a little bit of lace, some cheesecloth, and just some old hair and stuff like that. So I'll be using all those different materials, because the thing that's great about monster mud is you can use all kinds of different materials and they create different effects for you. So you're going to see as I do this, the different types of materials and how I layer them. Also too, I went ahead and opted to use pool noodles for the arms to give it a little more meat. And then I used my upholstery foam over the chest area and kind of around the hips. Now I don't want her to be super hippie. She's an old woman, right? So I'm going to keep her relatively flat, but I don't want the wood and the chicken wire and all that stuff to be shown underneath. So I'm going to use thicker material on top of the hood. And then we're going to use some thinner stuff on the bottom here. That's why I have the upholstery foam. But we're almost ready for monster mud. So why don't we get to that step?
All right, for our monster mud, you're going to need about a 5-gallon bucket worth of monster mud to create one of these life-size characters like this. And I'm just dipping my fabric inside, making sure it's completely saturated, and then wringing out any of the excess. And I'm placing it here over the upholstery foam. Now, I do go back like you see here and rub some of the monster mud on the upholstery foam, and that's just going to help your fabric stick to it better so you can hold its shape a little bit easier. And now I'll go back and do the skirt. And I want to mention too, you don't want to put clothes over every bit of it, like a whole shirt or an undershirt. You don't need to do that. You're basically layering this with as least amount of material as possible. So as you can see for the shirt, it's just some scraps in the front. And these were literally just shredded pieces of fabric I have. And now for the skirt, I'm wrapping it around. And like I said earlier in the video, I measured 33 inches from the base up. So I have something to attach this heavy skirt to, and I can mess with the bottom of it to flare it out a little bit, make it look more natural, but it can hang perfectly. And this is where you start to get the actual shape of the character. It starts to come together is by adding this one last piece over the top. This is what adds that character, it gives it that hooded swamp witch kind of feel. And then to add a little bit more character, I'm putting just some burlap I had dipped in monster mud over the top of that. and then I'll be adding some scraps of cheesecloth as well, and that's just going to help to give a little bit more character, make it feel more real, more grungy. I love using monster mud.
All right, everyone, so we just finished our monster mud process, and before we get to the paint, I wanted to show you guys a little detailed look at all the different layers we use to make this witch look as cool as she does. So I did put just our first couple layers. I only used 3 big pieces of material to cover the majority of her body, and as you saw from the video just a few moments ago, I tried to layer it from the bottom going upward. It's just easier to layer if you start with the bottom. I did put the shirt first just because I wanted to see how much coverage I was going to need and if I was going to need extra material around the back to make sure everything was good, but it worked out pretty well. But always start from the bottom up. It just makes it easier when you're layering your material over itself to make it look more natural. So I started with the skirt. I stapled everything. Now, I measured 33 inches from the ground up to that middle bracer that I use in our armature. So I had something to staple our material to, because this monster mud is so heavy when it's wet, you need something to hold it in place for you, and staples always work the best. So that's another reason why I use the wood structure. And then we came in with the shirt, and again, the shirt is just scrap material, something really small just to cover. And then where we get the majority of the look was the last bit of material I put over the top to create this like draped hooded look. And then to give a little bit more texture and a little more to look at, I put different types of material like the cheesecloth here, a little bit of burlap over the top of her, more cheesecloth, a little bit of wrapped burlap, and just actually some of that wool I use for hair. If you guys haven't seen my previous videos where I do all kinds of different sculptures, I usually use that soft material, but that worked perfectly around this dude here. So this is what it looks like right now. But now we're gonna get to the paint. So I'm gonna tape off the eyes. I'm gonna go ahead and spray this all with a black base coat. And then we're going to get to a detailed painting. Now our painting is going to be done with airbrush today, mostly. On our original witch, I did everything by hand, but today we're going to use our airbrush, and then we'll use a little bit of hand painting at the end just to finish it off and give it those cool details. But why don't we get to that next step?
All right, to start off with our painting process, like I said, we're just going to give this a nice coat of black paint. I like to use the black paint as a base coat. It just helps me to pop the colors in the next step, and you'll see in a second here what I'm talking about. But this is just latex paint. I use my spray gun. You guys can use just cans of spray paint if you want to do that. It's a lot easier, but it's not going to eat through any foam or anything because we covered everything with monster mud. And then here, to get our witch started, on the face and the hands, I'm just going to use a nice, like a mid-tone green color, this witch green. This is going to be a nice basis to start with, and then I can start adding my detail with deeper tones in a second. If you guys are wondering what kind of airbrush I'm using, this is the Swallowtail Barbados Rex from the Gallery brand. I absolutely love this airbrush. It has a trigger on there as opposed to the normal top trigger, so you don't get the kind of fatigue you typically get. Now here I'm spraying on a watered down brown color because I want all that dark brown to seep into the green, so that way you can see some of that work we did in our sculpture, and it starts to pop out all those details, all those wrinkles and crevices in the hands and the face. And now I'm using that same brown, and I'm going to give that hooded part of the character just a brown coat to break up the black. I don't want this character to be completely black like my original witch. I want this to be more dirty, more grungy, outside kind of woodland swamp witch. So to continue on with that vibe, I'm going to go ahead and just paint that burlap and everything brown first. And now I'm going in with a deeper color. It's that same brown color, but I added a few drops of purple and red and a little bit of blue in here just to deepen everything in. It gives me like a nice purple color, and this is what I'm going to be using to brush in some of the details in our sculpture here, just to accentuate the real dark areas. So around her eyes, the wrinkles in the forehead, and the nose, and the mouth, things like that. And it's going to really start to bring this character to life. And the same with the fingernails. I want that dirty, grungy feel, like she's digging in the dirt or she lives in a hut in the woods. So I'm always trying to think about my characters, where they come from, the backstory of them, because it really does play a big portion, a role in the painting process. And here I'm just going in with a highlighting color now, so I'm getting any of the super raised areas, and I'm just going to highlight that to give a little more contrast to the character. This is one of my favorite projects. I hope you guys like this witch. I'll definitely be doing more characters. I'm going to be checking off the list that you guys have given me, all the recommendations. This is so much fun to do. I hope you guys try this one out at home. If you have any questions about today's build or any other builds, feel free to reach out to me down in the comment section below. And here we're just doing a little bit of dry brushing, just so you can see some of that work we did with the different layers. And this is just a rust color, and I'll be going in with a lighter rust color as well, just to break up some of the monotony of the same tones. Then we're gonna hot glue some hair in here, but I hope you guys liked today's video. We're about done. And until next time, happy haunting.
Thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end of our video today, and I hope you enjoyed our Monster Mud Witch 2.0. Now, I had such an amazing time redesigning this character and of course bringing you guys along for the ride, so I hope you try this prop out at home. If you do, or if you tried any of the other props here on the channel out and you would like to see them featured in a future Carvalho Creations video, please email me at carvalhocreations@gmail.com for a chance to do just that. As always, if there's a character or creature you'd like to see me create in the future, or you have any questions about today's video, write me down in the comment section below and I'd be happy to answer them for you. But until next time, keep building things, stay creative, and don't forget to go wild. I'm Gio from Carvalho Creations, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, we did it! Boom! Boom! Boom!